What the hell is that?
Hey, Haley.
There's something else out there.
We are talking the movie Monstrous, the Bigfoot movie that will ask you the question, what is worse, the real monster outside or something maybe closer to home? This one is directed by Bruce Wemple and stars Anna Shields, who also wrote the movie. So the story here is we have this area within New York which is apparently famous for Sasquatch sightings, Bigfoot sightings, stuff like that. And the movie focuses on this woman, Sylvia, played by Anna Shields, and she is trying to track down what has happened to her missing friend. And she kind of tracks down her friend's last steps, and she did a ride share. So she kind of does the same thing and ends up with this woman called Alex. And this woman called Alex, there seems to be something maybe going on there. There may well be a potential attraction. And as she kind of goes off with Alex, obviously the truth will slowly unveil. And obviously we are dealing with, let's just say, multiple threats on different levels here. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So first of all, let's talk about what works with Monstrous. So this movie has a interesting idea, philosophical idea to a certain degree. And I have to applaud that. That kind of like that thread through the movie. I don't know how well it was particularly executed, we'll come on to that, but I think the idea, the foundation at least, is solid. I think the acting is, I've got to be honest with you, pretty good. One of the things that I did appreciate, and again I do have some issues with this still, but nonetheless, there's some back and forth between the characters of Alex and Sylvia, where both are maybe not quite telling the exact truth about their sort of particular circumstances, and it's kind of somewhat of a little bit of a mind games of the pair of them trying to kind of like outmaneuver each other, but also at the same time developing this potential relationship and stuff like that. So I thought that was actually quite well played in regards to acting. The actual Sasquatch creature itself, I think, is well handled. Now, we do not see a lot of it, if I'm being honest, and the setup is very similar to the movie Exists, if you've seen that. Again, I don't want to kind of spoil anything for you, but nonetheless, if you've seen Exists, the basic setup in regards to the motivations of this creature is similar to that. They wisely keep the Sasquatch only really in the peripheral. We never really get a money shot. We see partial kind of areas of the creature, or we see it in shadow or silhouette, things like that. And you know, so we never really know how great the kind of the practical makeup is here. Now it is practical makeup, but I've got to say what we do see is well handled. You know, there's a couple of shots here where you do see the scale of this thing. And I think because the filmmakers are keeping their cards close to the chest, probably for budgetary reasons, I have to say that I think it works because of that, and I actually think less is more if you can't really kind of afford to do, you know, a very much more of an explicit kind of Bigfoot movie. There are a couple of grisly deaths within the movie, and I have to say, you know, that they do a good job without making it too, you know, gratuitously, you know, explicit. But it does feel quite painful, especially when it's plussed with, you know, sound effects and stuff like that. That's kind of all I was saying. Maybe what doesn't work. So you'll be surprised how little the Bigfoot is in this movie. In actual fact, the Bigfoot is really a B-plot in this film, and not the main driving force. So that may disappoint you initially. Now, that may be down to budgetary reasons. They simply can't have you know, big set pieces and stuff like that. I do think it could have, from what you see on screen, you could have had more of that, I think, and maybe have it, you know, maybe have a little bit more kind of Bigfoot on the screen. I think it is a little bit light on it, to be honest with you, when you are selling the movie as a Bigfoot film. I think some people will feel they are somewhat shortchanged with this one. When in actual fact, the movie is actually something else. It just has, you know, some scenes with the Bigfoot in it. I gotta say, I think the relationship between Alex and Sylvia is convoluted, especially at the beginning. As the movie progresses and kind of, you know, more stuff is revealed, I feel that it kind of a little bit, more things make sense to a point. I do think there's some unrealistic reactions to things, but at the beginning of the movie, I would say maybe for the first 2 acts, the relationship between them and how they have got to their points in their life, shall we say, seems rather convoluted and somewhat contrived, I have to say as well. So I wasn't particularly buying it, and I got to be honest with you, I put it down to the writing. I think that could have been handled a little better here. And I have, like I said, I think maybe too much time is spent. Now, you could argue that the whole point of the movie is maybe not what you expect, and what we actually have is the point of the movie. But again, I think that's fine if you're making this sort of movie. But this movie, you know, I think, to be honest with you, is being, you know, it's been kind of sold as a Bigfoot movie, and when that's kind of pushed aside, I don't think you'll have a positive reaction, to be honest. So I think maybe that could be a potential issue with this film. And I've got to say, I touched on it as well, some of the kind of the reactions to stuff, so just is mind-bogglingly just mundane. So when Sylvia first sees this Bigfoot creature, you know, you would have thought your mind would be blown, but she just seems completely kind of lucid and oh God, what's that out there? You know, it's just like, that's it. You know, it's just, that's just one example, I think, of unrealistic writing, and I've said this in many, many reviews. I just want to see films. This is my personal, you know, desire in regards to especially horror films, where people act in a realistic manner, not like they do in films. I'd be so much more interested in that, and I'd be curious if anyone else would be. But yeah, some of the kind of just the typical kind of movie type reactions is somewhat typical. But despite, I think the movie is somewhat not completely, it doesn't completely play its cards in regards to what the movie is. If we judge the movie, the actual movie that we've got, rather than the movie that we wanted to have, I still think this is a fairly good movie in regards to its plot idea, in a way that it didn't really even need to have a Bigfoot in it, to be honest. I think that's just there to, you know, to get in horror fans. But the conceit is good. And there are other horror elements within this movie, is the best way I would kind of describe it without kind of explicitly saying what the kind of the real A-plot is here. But it is a horror movie, but just maybe not the horror movie that you were particularly expecting here. But I still think the performances and the idea is solid. Again, some of the kind of maybe the writing here and some of the kind of the reactions maybe fall definitely into kind of more of a B-movie territory. But I still think if you can judge it for the film that it is, not the film that you want it to be, nonetheless, I think it is probably an above average film, but only just. I would give this a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.